the heart of the Ravenfall Forest, villagers whispered about a cursed path known as the Trail of Echoes. Legend said that those who wandered into it would hear the voices of their past, friends, loved ones, and even their own regrets until they were driven mad or lost forever. No one who entered had ever returned. Elliot, a skeptic and adventurer, had always dismissed such tales as superstition. When he heard of the trail, he was intrigued, not frightened. His life in the bustling city was unraveling, his career stagnant, his relationship crumbling. He needed an escape, a challenge to feel alive again. Armed with a map, a flashlight, and a journal, Elliot arrived at Ravenfall Forest one autumn afternoon. Towering trees formed an imposing canopy, their leaves an ominous mix of crimson and gold. The air was unnaturally still. As dusk fell, he found the Trail of Echoes, marked only by a worn wooden sign that read, "Turn back now." Smirking, Elliot stepped onto the path. First, it seemed like any other forest trail, the crunch of leaves underfoot the only sound. But as the light faded, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew colder, and the silence was broken by faint whispers. "Elliot?" He froze. The voice was unmistakable. It was his mother's, but she had been dead for years. "Elliot, why didn't you visit more often?" The voice asked, soft yet accusatory. Shaking his head, he pressed on, telling himself it was his imagination. Yet the whispers grew louder, joined by others, his ex-girlfriend accusing him of neglect, his childhood best friend laughing bitterly about a broken promise, and even his own voice mocking his failures. The whispers felt tangible, like a weight pressing against his chest. He quickened his pace, but the path seemed to stretch endlessly. The flashlight flickered, its beam barely cutting through the thickening mist. Then he saw her. A figure stood in the distance, shrouded in the fog. It was his sister Claire, who had disappeared 10 years ago. She turned to face him, her expression blank, but her eyes filled with sorrow. "Elliot," she said, her voice echoing unnaturally. "You left me behind. You didn't try hard enough to find me." "Claire?" he whispered, stepping closer. But as he reached out, she dissolved into mist. Panicking now, he ran. The path twisted and turned in impossible ways, leading him deeper into the forest. The voices grew deafening, overlapping into a cacophony of guilt, anger, and regret. Suddenly, he stumbled into a clearing. Its center was an ancient stone altar, surrounded by withered trees. The altar lay an ornate mirror, its surface shimmering unnaturally. It approached cautiously. Whispers faded, replaced by an eerie silence. The mirror's reflection wasn't his. It showed a younger version of himself, bright-eyed and full of hope. "Do you remember who you were?" the reflection asked. "Before you let fear and failure consume you?" Elliot recoiled. "This is some kind of trick." The reflection smirked. "Is it? Or are you finally seeing the truth?" Before he could respond, the whispers returned. Louder and angrier, figures emerged from the mist. His mother, Claire, his ex-girlfriend, and others all pointing at him accusingly. "You can end this," the reflection said. "But you must confront your past." Desperate, Elliot reached for the mirror. The moment his fingers touched its surface, he was pulled inside. He found himself in a surreal landscape, an endless void filled with fragments of his memories. He saw himself as a child, ignoring his sister's pleas to play. As a teenager, dismissing his mother's advice. And as an adult, prioritizing work over love. The memories were relentless, forcing him to relive every regret and mistake. But amidst the pain, he began to see patterns. His choices weren't just failures. They were lessons he had refused to learn. "I can't change the past," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "But I can do better. Do better." The void trembled, and a blinding light engulfed him. It awoke on the forest floor. The trail of echoes silent around him. The altar and mirror were gone. He felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. As he retraced his steps out of the forest, the voices didn't return. The trees no longer felt menacing, and the air carried a hint of warmth. When he reached the edge of the trail, he saw something remarkable. The villagers had gathered, staring at him in awe. "You came back," one of them whispered. No one had ever returned from the Trail of Echoes, yet Elliot stood there, alive and transformed. He shared his story, urging them to see the trail not as a curse, but as a challenge to confront their own demons. Elliot left Ravenfall Forest a changed man. He repaired his relationships, pursued his passions with renewed vigor, and lived with purpose. The whispers of the trail had tried to break him, but instead they gave him clarity.